Leroy Walker, aka the Machine, one of the best bench pressers in the country. I have the pleasure of interviewing. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. Doing pretty good. I'm really, really excited that I got somebody like yourself on here because as I tell everybody that I admire that I interview, the one thing about having your own podcast that's great is you can interview the people that you actually admire and not the people that you have to because, CBS is paying you to. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah.
So, getting you on. And like I said, I interviewed Paul Lynn last night. I interviewed Rita West and a bunch of other people that I really admire. So I just want to, I did a little research and you've been bench pressing since you're 13 years old.
Yeah.
So how did you discover, were you always just strong or did you all like other sports?
Nah, you know what? I got introduced by my uncle who was, he was a bodybuilder at the time. And, he had a bunch of weight. So I couldn't keep up with the workouts or with his workout partner. So I started with the easy curl bar, and I learned how to bench with that. Then eventually I added, 10s, 20s, 25s, then worked up to, an Olympic bar. And then just, the progression kind of went from there.
Okay. And did you play any sports in school or it was primarily just
I grew up, I think the first, but besides, just, soccer or kickball and stuff like that, just playing on recess. I think the first organized sport I was ever a part of, believe it or not, was actually bowling. And
really?
I was garbage. I didn't grow up with a dad. So my mom just at that point, I think she just wanted to get me out of the house. So she signed me up for bowling and I was horrible. And, I was just horrible. I was a gutter, everything. I think I got an award at the end of the year for like out of the cellar dweller or something, because I was finally able to knock some pins down. And so next season, or they were about to re-up and it was in the springtime, they have a season, couple weeks and they, or it's league. So they're about to start league back up. And believe it or not, she signed me up for Little League. And I never played before, never played, and never grew up having a dad to play catch with or anything like that.
Right.
I just kind of heard my friends talk about it. So we ended up, I signed up for a team and there was different divisions. You had, I don't know, like you had majors, minors, so and so. So I remember I got drafted and there was two teams. There was the junior Yankees and then the major Yankees. I ended up going to the major Yankees.
Really?
And I was out there and these guys were like my age, but they were more advanced. And the coach was like, you know what, you're kind of trash. Are you sure you're on this roster? He's like, I don't remember picking you. And so it ended up, I was at the wrong, my mom took me to the wrong field. And then I ended up going with the team I was supposed to be with. And then the coach, it was like the Bad News Bears, the coach ended up quitting. So my mom actually filled in to become the coach. And then all of a sudden, all these dads, this was back in the 80s, all these dads, a woman couldn't coach to this. And then she's like, well, none of y'all came out to try to coach.
Yeah, right.
When there was a vacancy. So I remember that was my first kind of like team organized sport. And it sucked because even though my mom was a coach, she wouldn't start me for shit. I got stuck carrying the bag. So I could never relate to that like coach's kid. Yeah. Because I still had to earn my spot. I think we had like 10 kids, or 8 kids. I was still batting ninth.
Right.
I couldn't catch a break. But eventually I grew into it, ended up becoming like a Little League All-Star. Baseball just kind of became my thing. We had a real competitive team. Our high school team went to state like every year. So that was a big deal as far as sports. It was probably my first time that, strengths and all that stuff started to become a part. I think I made varsity. It was only 2 of us that got called up as sophomores to play on the varsity. So that was a big deal. And then I think, junior high was my first run-in with the weights. We had one of those. There was this they called it like the dungeon. There was all this stuff, and there's this one. You ever watched the Never Ending Story?
Sure.
Remember how they had the cellar or the whatever?
Yeah.
When it was all this dust. Well, we had kind of a weight room like that. It wasn't even a weight room. It was like there was a couple old wrestling mats, and, you know, like a couple of equipment, football helmets. And then they had this one, actually the only thing that was in it that was functional was they had one of those universal machines. You know, it had the tricep. And then the one thing I fell in love with, it had this shoulder press. So you kind of sit on a seat. And I remember we'd always try to see who could do the most. And so it got to the point where, like, my 8th grade year, I was able to do the whole stack. Which back then was probably like 250 pounds.
Yeah.
But, you know, and then I went to, you know, my freshman year. I think my freshman year we did football tryouts, you know, for high school. And I think I ended up doing like 225 as my max as a freshman. When I was under, I was like 13 going on 14 at the time. And, you know, it contributed to going back to 13, doing all the close grip.
Yeah. So when was your first actual bench press meet, and how old were you?
My first bench press meet that I can remember, besides high school, you know, we had like organized weightlifting contests. My first official one was WABDL, world record deadlifters and bench or something. It was run by Gus Rethwich, and I remember seeing it in a magazine and his claim to fame. I think he was in a couple movies with like Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was in like Blade Runner or something. He's some big scary guy, but he had a weightlifting federation. So I remember I went to his, and I was like the only raw person. I was like the only raw, and I was the only junior class lifter. Okay. And I remember lifting, and to me, I didn't think nothing of it at the time, but I did it was like a 489 raw, which wasn't that good because everyone else was doing like 5. And I think my first true loss came, I think I lost to Ryan Kennelly. You know, but it was shirted. I didn't know what shirted versus raw was. He did like a 600 or something shirted. So that was the first time I think I took like 3rd place. Yeah. You know, and I was like one of those. So, but I won juniors, and so then I learned about the different classes. Right. You know, back then I didn't realize what a participation trophy was. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna enter juniors, so I win something, and then I'll go open, so I have more competition. Okay. You know, and then from there on, I just, you know, I think at 19 I hit my first 500 in a meet. You know, but at the time it was like most of the lifters were shirted or geared people. Okay. You know, West Side barbell was a big thing. So raw lifting wasn't getting a lot of hype back in the day.
Let's for people that don't know, if you could explain the difference between equipped or shirted and raw.
Okay, raw is pretty much it sounds like what it says. Raw meaning it's a sanctioned meet, but you're only allowed a t-shirt. You can use a weightlifting belt, which in my opinion doesn't help you too much on the bench press. And then you're allowed wrist wraps, which even back then wrist wraps weren't really a real big thing, not like they are now. Right. Versus shirted means you can have a double or single or triple ply or denim, whatever the sanctioned meet allows for. And it's a shirt that helps you lift, you know, depending on the shirt or depending on your experience with it, lets you lift anywhere from 100 to 200 or 300 pounds more than you normally would. Yeah. Which is legit because everybody in that class is lifting with the same style of shirt.
I see. Okay. And you always preferred raw. Did you ever try shirted?
Nah, you know what it was though? It was kind of by default. One, because I was poor. I was super poor. And to be shirted, you kind of had, you had to be able to buy the shirt. And then you had to be able to have a team to kind of help get you in the shirt and then to know how to lift with it. It seemed like really, really high tech. So at the time I was just like, oh, this is this advanced part of the sport I just don't know about yet. Now, when the actuality was these guys just had money. But I think the lay of the land was different. They're what I would call like, this was back when, and I always joke, this was back when like hair metal bands were cool. So they were the cool kids. And I grew up in Washington State, and it was like mostly Western Washington.
You're talking the 80s then?
80s and 90s. Okay. You know what I mean? So hair metal bands, all that stuff, that was cool. Like rap was kind of whatever. So if you were like in that, all that stuff, you were still kind of like an outsider. Versus these guys, you know, they were listening to the Metallica. They had all the geared lifting. All the meets were focused on them. So they were like the it crowd. And if you weren't part of that crowd or part of that regime, you really didn't get to no love because none of there was like Powerlifting USA and maybe one other outlet that even covered powerlifting. So unless you were a geared lifter, you were getting no hype. But now that I look back at it, it makes sense because the Ingers and, the Forzas of the world were the ones putting on these beats, putting on these publications. So now it makes sense why everything back in the day seemed like it was, shirted or geared, because the same makers were the same people making, kind of like now what we have with the scandemic. You have CNN who's also, the same people that are pushing the scare are pushing the cure.
Yeah, it's about the almighty dollar. It always seems to come down to that, And as far as being part of the clique, I think that is, that's unfortunately, I think that's with everything. I mean, it's the same way in bodybuilding, and it's the same. I've never did a powerlifting meet, but I did a few bodybuilding shows, and it's the same thing. I mean, it's just
it is, but it's changed a lot, and I know that's a whole nother topic. But I think social media.
Yes.
Social media, I think what I think it is access to the marketplace and access to self-promotion and self-exposure is what's really changed it. You know what I mean? You can have, and it's proven that way in so many sports. You can look at, rest in peace. You can look at, I was going to make an example. I just forgot his name.
It's all right.
The guy who came up as the backyard brawler. You know what I mean?
Oh, God, I know exactly what you're talking about. Oh, he died. He passed away. What's his name?
Yeah.
Kimbo Slice.
Kimbo Slice.
Right.
Every sport has been able to find a Kimbo Slice, if you will, because of self-promotion and coverage versus bodybuilding back in the day. Unless you were in that circle that got publication from Weider or some other major publication, you were nobody. You weren't able to put your stuff up.
You're 100%. You're 100% right. And
you could have never had in the 80s. You couldn't have had a Castleberry because no outlets were going to cover that.
Right. Yeah.
There was no self-promotion.
Right. Yeah. That seems to. I don't know much about you as far as except for what I researched, the videos I've seen, but that from what I could tell, that type of athlete, if you will, kind of rubs you the wrong way. Am I right? Because they didn't deserve it. They didn't work for that. They're not champion powerlifters or champion bodybuilders.
Here's what it is. I think it's two things.
Because I feel the same way. It bothers me too.
No, here's what it is. It's not that they did it. It's not them as individuals. So let me be clear about that. And I think I know where you're going with this. I never had a problem with the Kevin Washingtons. I never had a direct problem with the Brad Castleberries of the world. I'd always advocate from a business side. They're great for the sport. They're great for business.
Exactly what I was going to say.
Just like if you put a McDonald's on one street corner and a Burger King, people are like, oh, it's competition. No, it's bringing more people to that area that want hamburgers.
Right.
Having a Castleberry out there, even though he might do what some people consider fake or gym fuckery, whatever the case may be, it's getting more people talking about power building or powerlifting.
Yeah, so there is a benefit.
Because you don't agree or you don't identify with what they're doing as traditional powerlifting or bodybuilding or power building, if you will, doesn't change the fact it's still getting more attention and more eyes on the sport. Okay. So my problem was never with them. My problem is when, and like I said, it's not even them, it's when they choose not to compete, and I'm fine with that. But it's when their fanboys want to pump them up to be better than the people who do compete. Yeah. And they do it with no, there's nothing to measure it against.
If they would just say, look, I'm great on social media, but compared to these guys that do this professionally, I'm nothing. If they would just say that, all is forgiven, but they don't.
And here's the thing: I don't even expect them to. But there's times when someone gets it. Now here's where it becomes an issue with me. When you're at a major expo and you want to get in someone's face and you want to bark out these numbers that, like, I'm like, okay, in this day and age where social media like legitimizes something and there's no legitimacy to the claim, even on social media, even on a platform where shit can be fabricated. Right. At least if you're going to get in my face and say you're the best to ever do it and you're hitting 700 pounds, you better have a fucking fake, at least have the fake video of 700 pounds.
Yeah, why don't you explain who Brad Castleberry is for the listeners?
Brad Castleberry, I mean, believe it or not, he's a well-known social media lifter. He's a personality. He's a guy that's established himself. He kind of made his claim to fame by, doing these exuberant lifts. People say it was fake weight. Some people say, he had a really generous spot. Whatever the case may be, he found a niche. He grew his platform, and he monetized it. It became very profitable. Mm-hmm. I never had a problem with him throwing 675 on the incline and, hitting his chest and saying, PR, whatever the case may be. But it's when I go do the same thing legitimately.
Right.
And then people put the onus on me to have to prove, are you really that strong? Well, out of the two of us, one of us has competed. Yeah. One of us has done it under the same rules and criteria of where it counts.
Right.
So my frustration was with like the fanboys or the trollers that put the onus on me to prove if I'm legit. You know what I mean?
Oh, so you're coming from that angle. See, and I fully understand. See, it does. I have nothing against somebody making money. I have nothing against somebody, pushing their social media or YouTube or whatever as much as possible for monetization reasons. But like I said, if you just say it, if you just come out and say it, I do have a problem with it because it's not legitimate. Listen. And then what happens is you get followers who are young kids who are following them, but they've never accomplished anything except social media following. Do you know what I mean? And yeah. it's like, and the same thing is happening in powerlifting, and the same thing is happening in bodybuilding. I'll have young guys in the gym say, "Oh, do you follow such and such?" And I don't know these people because they YouTube, and I'm like. And I tell them, look, why don't you follow people that were really accomplished? Why don't you follow the Charles Glasses, the Dave Palombos, the Chris Acetos, the people that train champion bodybuilders and have been there and done that, instead of somebody that, has a six pack and is on social media with no shirt on going, this is what you should do, but they have no acolytes behind it. And it does bother me when a Brad Castleberry, look, I don't know if the weights were fake. But I know that if I could bench 600 in the gym, you bet your ass I'm going to enter a contest because that's pretty impressive. And I put it on the line, right? But these guys really don't, and a couple of times at the expos, I've seen videos where people have called them out. And then, it's all a bunch of, deflection. I can't right now, blah, 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 this and that, so on and so forth. And that even happened to you with a social media personality where you approached them and you called them out and you said, let's lift right now.
I think I think it's more about, it's about accountability. That's what it really comes down to. I would say it's more about, I just chalked it up as a loss because I see it more as an accountability thing, and people have no, I can't get mad if people don't have absolute like standards and absolute things that they say, this is near and dear and this is what I stand up and this is what I believe in.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If people are going to put the onus on someone to actually have some type of validation other than just self-proclamation of I can do this, I can do that, then it's like they were probably never going to be people I wanted to be fans, or they were never going to understand why I do what I do anyways.
Yeah. So are you okay with talking about basically who you called out? What was it, about 6 or 7 years ago?
Oh yeah, it was. I have no problem with that. I mean, someone got in my face, and I called them out. There was some videos where I made a mockery of like it was kind of like you can fool the masses, but the real people in it, you can't fool me. You know what I mean? It's like I saw the video you did. I wasn't that impressed. It's not that hard. It might appear hard to these other people, but it's not. So, let's have a challenge. And then it was like barking out all these numbers. And then I'm like, who are you kidding? I know you're a trainer. I know you're a spotter.
Oh, yeah.
Your spotter can bench that.
Yeah.
You can't bench that.
Yeah.
And
are you comfortable? Are you comfortable mentioning names, or you would rather not?
Oh yeah, you can mention his name.
Yeah, well, I've seen both videos, and I saw Kevin Washington, and that I still, between him and CT Fletcher, I still watch that video to get myself motivated for the gym. I'm not gonna lie, it went viral. And so what he was doing, he was doing 405 at a pause and benching it when CT Fletcher told him to. It's really popular. But then, which was even better, is you did the same thing with 405, except you doing it with close grip.
Yeah.
And I was like, when I watched that, like my jaw dropped, and I was like, what? Like, and you were doing it. Not only were you doing it close grip, but I think after about 4 or 5 reps of him doing it, he kind of got gassed, and you kept going. You kept close gripping 4 or 5, and you kept going. And I'm like, this guy's up. That's why they call you the machine. And I'm like, this is why they call him the machine.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you're legit. So you enter contests. You've broken several records, and you've actually broken a CT Fletcher record. Am I right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was at Venice Beach, right? They have a powerlifting contest.
Yeah, Venice Beach. But there was controversy about that because some people, and the fact that you watch the 650 wasn't necessarily raw. At the time, I thought I broke the raw record, but the raw record was probably like in the 600s. The 650 that was done in a single ply shirt. It wasn't a raw lift.
Oh, I see. Okay, now you were wearing the shirt, or CT was?
CT was wearing a shirt.
And you still broke it raw?
I broke it raw, but it was apples and oranges because it was a 650. Was it a record? Yes. Was it a raw record? No. So I
got you.
You see,
but here's the thing. I don't know CT Fletcher. I just know as much as the next person that follows him on social media. I would think he really wouldn't have a problem with it. He would be like, "Yeah, congratulations," No,
he was. That whole thing, he was congratulatory. It was like a moment. The only way I could put it in context is like, it was kind of like don't ask, don't tell, no harm, no foul. 99% of the population that would watch, one, most people don't recognize or remember that contest. 2, the only way we know the contest happened is because there's video footage. 3, most importantly, 9.9 times out of 10, the average person who watched that video would have never known from the eyeball test that it was a shirted lift. Okay. But if you understand what a shirt is versus a t-shirt, you right away you recognize, okay, that's a single ply shirt. That's not raw.
Right.
But it's like one of those things like, that back then it was popular to go shirted. People understood it. It wasn't like he was trying to be.
No, it was just different times. Yeah, different generations.
Different times. It's like Houdini doing a magic trick and, doing it now. And then you got David Blaine who's like, motherfucker, I know how you did that trick. I'm going to kiss myself. Is David Blaine going to be threatened or is he going to call him out? No. But amongst each other, they're like, I know how you did that trick.
I got you. Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, at least it was, at least he came with in good faith. You know what I mean? At least he did. Yeah. So if you don't mind, why don't you explain exactly what happened? What was that, the Arnold Expo you approached Kevin Washington?
Nah, I think that was at the Olympia. There was hype about if they were going to do this show where it was going to put different discipline of powerlifters against other powerlifters. You're going to have one team coached by one person. CT was going to have his cast of CT's Iron Addict All-Stars versus other people. So they needed, you need the con and you need, the good guy. You need the villain and the heel and you need these other people. So it was going to be, that was right after the video. There was all this hype. I think behind the scenes, they were still trying to gain funding for it. So it kind of worked itself out that we had this, I'll say it, fabricated beef. It wasn't even a real beef because 20 minutes before that went down, we were talking about stuff. So when that happened, my reaction was genuine because I was like, motherfucker, we just talked 20 minutes ago with no cameras and there was no one around. What the fuck is all this? Then I understood, okay, this is what we're doing. Okay, yeah.
So he was putting on a show and you were like,
yeah. And it caught me off guard because I was like, who the fuck are you talking to? You were not talking like this to me 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
I would be terrible at that.
You know, it went viral. It didn't rub me the wrong way. It just pissed me off when people are like, oh, you back down. Oh, you're not that strong. And then what kills me is I got trolled, and I think the videos are still up. You can go and find this guy. He goes by Ben Jackanoff or something. This guy put out like 3 fucking videos of, I think the guy was like in love with Kevin Washington. He's like, look how real Kevin Washington is. Look at all Leroy's videos. So what he did is he took all my early YouTube /IG, which wasn't a lot, where I've told the people my training style is I do overload training and I lift with an assist. It was Brad Castleberry before Castleberry made it famous. I would throw 650 on the bar. I would do 90% of the lift, and I had a spot. It was but the method was when I would put 600 on the bar, I would do it on my own with no ease, with no problem.
Right.
I'd throw 675 on the bar, then I do 630. So it was give and take. It was part of my training style. I was never going out to the masses and saying, look, I'm a 675 bencher.
That's like sparring. Right.
Yeah. And here's the difference. A lot of times until after the career, you don't see sparring footage. You don't see the lost footage of so-and-so's training. All you see is the highlight reel.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you'll see, like, great example, Mike Tyson. You see all the knockout videos. You see him hit the speed bag before the fight, but you don't really see the behind the scenes. You don't see his off day. You don't see when his sparring partner knocked him the fuck out. You don't see those. Yeah. The difference is, as I said, my training style, I'm going to use this as my video diary. And people know this if you watch it, if you went back to I show everything. I show my fails. Right. I'll joke around. I'll get more hits or likes or views on a fail than I will to make.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of part of the sport. I mean, you gotta, as far as I know, I don't know much about it, but you got to keep trying until you get it. So like, if you look at what's his name's videos, who was the guy who always benched equipped, but he tore his pec. He's a famous bencher, equipped bencher, shirt bencher, but there's more videos of him.
Mendelsohn.
Mendelsohn. Yeah. There's more videos of him not failing in a bench press competition than actually, and breaking records. Because I think the attitude is just sooner or later I'm going to do it. If I throw enough shit against the wall, something's going to stick, right? So you can't, you gotta fail in order before you get that. And but
in this day and age, it's not sexy.
Right. Yes. You're right.
It's not sexy. Right. It's not sexy to show the fails. Everybody wants to see the highlight reel. Everybody wants to see the 15 seconds of someone being on top, and not because no one wants to hear it. It took a lot of, hard work and stuff to get there.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So did anything ever happen with the Kevin Washington? Did you ever bench each other or anything like that?
Nah, I mean, and I hate to say this, but I mean, just being, matter of factual, I think it was, like I said, it was all fabricated. It was like, it's like if the Bad News Bears caught the New York Yankees, do the New York Yankees ever need to sit back and really entertain it, or wait for someone to say, okay, you guys are facing each other? It's like, in what deranged Twilight Zone warped universe would that matchup ever happen? But with that being said, we live in a world where, and it's not, I was never bothered by the fact that people wanted to see it happen. I was just bothered by the fact that when it didn't happen, people thought it's because I was nervous or I had something to prove. And I'm like, you can go back to the history books, you can go through the record books, you can go back to find a video of me when I'm not benching over 600 pounds.
Right. Now, how many powerlifting contests have you entered?
I would say probably over 30 in my lifetime.
So that's the proof is in the pudding. That's it, and how many,
But I don't, but that's because you know how to actually get off your ass, you know what I'm saying, and do some research and do your own due diligence versus the average person don't. I used to joke around that, his fans, the same people that think he's a 700-pound veteran, the same fucking people that think Rocky Balboa was real.
Right.
It's you can't convince these guys anything other than that. You know what I mean?
The first time I realized how bad it was, well, I went to the Olympia in 2000. It was my 40th birthday. So I'm 45 now. So 2016, right?
Yeah.
2016, I went to the Olympia. And, God rest his soul, Rich Piana did a lot for the industry. But he never turned pro and he was never a champion bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And it was an hour wait to see Rich Piana and speak to him and get his autograph. I waited 20 minutes to meet Jay Cutler. And I was like, how is this? I waited 20 minutes to meet Jay Cutler. And then another, and we don't even have to go that high. I just walked up to Jose Raymond at the booth and he was like this, and I was like, Jose, can I get your autograph and a pic? He's like, yeah, sure. And there's a guy that was like a 212 bodybuilding champion, won multiple, broke the top 5 in the Olympia multiple times. And he's like, he's born at the expo. But, some social media guy is, and to me, I don't get it. I don't understand. Maybe because I'm older and I'm just not young and into the social media thing as much as the younger person is.
No, there's some stuff to be said. Then there's some other stuff where I just put it on there's some stuff you just can't make. I mean, it's like I said, it's the day and age we live on now. I'm not mad. Like you always hear the saying, don't hate, don't hate the player, hate the game, or whatever the case may be. I don't think it's bad when it happens to people and they capitalize on it. Now, my problem is when you go so far out of your way to start drinking the fucking Kool-Aid. You know what I'm saying? When you've won 2 fucking fights against nobody, and then you want to make a fucking scene at UFC calling out a real person like they owe it to fight you. I'm like,
yeah.
What have you done? But that's the world we live in.
Right. Yeah, you're right about it. You're right about that. So, what was your max bench? What records do you hold now currently?
Currently, I would say, I think my friend Swimhack just hit like a 650, but it's a different federation. But I would say, the 633 in the USPA was a master's record. I had, one of the top lifts at 661 in the USPA, which is used to be one of the coveted federations, one of the hardest federations to lift in.
Right.
Currently still top 10 in the world.
Right.
And stuff like that. So, so I've had, I can look back and say when you're in the top 1 percentile of what you did, you've made it. Did I hit 700 in a competition like I wanted to? No, but at the end of the day, when you keep it all in perspective.
I was about to say that, yeah.
Yeah, more people walk the face of the fucking moon that have bench pressed 700 pounds. So
that's right.
That's an accomplishment.
Yeah, so let's put it in perspective. Your best bench was 671. And
675.
675. I apologize. So to put it in perspective, how many people on planet Earth actually benched more than 700?
How many people? I mean,
raw, obviously.
Raw?
I think it's 5, right?
Yeah, well, let me go down the list. There's James Henderson.
Okay.
Eric Spoto, Scott Mendelson, Johnny Harris, TD Smash.
We're talking raw?
Yeah, Julius Maddox.
And then there's that Russian dude.
Yeah, and Krill. So we're talking 7. There's speculation that a couple other people did, but it wasn't recorded. But I'm just going off of if you were to go to all the top publications that recognize this was a sanctioned lift, right? I think we're looking at like 7. You know what I'm saying? So
7 people in the history of bench pressing broke 700, and you're at 675. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah, still, I mean, like I said, it's still top 10 in the world. And when you consider the bench press as something that almost everybody in Western society has attempted at least at one point, whether it was high school, football, wrestling, whatever the case may be. Your average person who goes to the gym, everybody has tried. Now, has everybody done a competition? No, but everybody's had a gym. So everybody's at least had their dabble and trying to say, I've hit 225 or 315. So to be one of even fewer people that have actually entered a contest and done it on the highest level, I mean, to me, it's a pretty big accomplishment.
Yeah, it is a big accomplishment. I think people, when they hear today 675, they don't really understand how big of an accomplishment it is, because of the Brad Castleberries and because of shirted lifts, which are like over 1,000.
Yeah.
You know,
one that I'm actually more proud of, believe it or not, is the newest thing I've entered, and like the newest thing I've, jumped into, which is, I mean, everybody has done curls. Everybody's done cheat curls.
Yes, I apologize. I did not ask you about that. Yes. Well, continue. I didn't ask you about that, and I'm sorry about that. I was actually going to, and I forgot to ask you about that. Go ahead.
So for me to be able to cross over, because I got so much shit for being a bench only. Oh, you're just one dimensional, this and that. I'm like, it's kind of like I just didn't feel the need to necessarily go to be the best deadlifter in the world or one of the top squatters. And I'll joke around and people will say it's cocky. They're like, well, you didn't. I'm like, if I wanted to, I could. Right. So for me, it's so fun to be able to step, because I know, and people who know me, people who have lifted and trained with me know that I have never in my life made it a day or made it a thing to like, okay, now we got to go get our curls and now let's go do some accessory work. I've never fucking broken a bench press session to go do curls, nor have I ever trained curls seriously. Right. Not like the other school of thought where people said they're going to curl and train arms every single day, and then they ended up being, the American record holder than that. So to me, it says more about to myself, and I would hope it translates to people to dedication to know that on my very first meet, I took a shot at the American record. That fell short, but it's like, how many people jump in a sport where you automatically are going to set the American record on your first without ever competing? So for 5 months, all I heard is shit and naysayers. You never done it. You're not going to do it. You don't understand. It's so much different when you go, just like with bench press. Oh, you touch and go this, or you incline's not flat. Your touch and go is not competition. I heard it all until I got on the bench and then started doing it. And sure enough, I had people, you'll never do 550. You'll never do 6. You'll never do 650. You'll never get to that level. So going into a sport where I've had people tell me what I'm not going to do, it was nothing new to me. Now, learning how to train for it, it was like, it was just like my bench press. It was all self-taught. I never had a strict curl coach. I didn't know nothing about strict curl. I just started looking up some stuff and saw some people that I wanted to follow. And then I applied some of my bench press methodology to my strict curl training.
So if you can explain what strict curl is for people that don't know.
Strict curl is where, there's different variations of the bar you can use. That's debatable. But for the most part, you get a curl bar, you got some weight on there, and you got to go against a wall, or they'll say a wall or a platform, where your shoulders and your butt got to be in contact with it the whole time. Some federations make your head have to touch. Some federations don't. You'll start at the bottom with your arms fully extended. They'll say lift, or they'll say curl. You'll get a command. You curl to the top. Everything has to stay connected. Now, the hard part, what separates strict curl from, like all the stuff we see, the gym fuckery stuff, or, what people call the cheat curls, is controlling all the way down. So curling 1 or 2 or 150 pounds isn't hard. It's controlling it and not letting you take you off of the wall that makes it so hard, hence the word strict curl. So the overall world record, recognized by everybody, is 249. The overall American record is 225, and that's held by CT Fletcher. So before that,
still held by CT Fletcher.
Yeah. So the highest curl, or the heaviest curl outside of CTs, I think, was like 200. So my very first meet, which was only a couple weeks ago, I went into the meet. I opened with 204, which for that sanction or that federation was their heavyweight and was their new world and American record. Then I went to 209, which put me at the second heaviest strict curl in American history. And all my lifts going up to that training, I made it no secret. I wanted to go for 225. You know, I had a flu bug and some stuff. That's neither here nor there. So to me, anything less than 226 would have been a waste of lift. I could have made 220 and I've just been, oh, you still missed 225. I could have done 224, 215. 215 and 220 would have been makeables. But in my eyes, if I want to get to the world record, eventually I got to pass 225. So, and you get, it's just like it's like a powerlifting meet. You get 3 lifts. You can't go down. So once you pick a weight, you either have to get that weight or take it again. So let's say if I would have went 200 pounds like I did, I can go up, but I can't go back down. So that's why it's real important to pick lifts that you can make. So the way I saw it is whether I would have went 215, 220, 224 on my third, it wouldn't have mattered unless I got over 225. So I said, you know what, let me just go for 226 and what happens. And, you know, I got about 3/4. I didn't get it. So me, just a little bit of a history lesson as far as my career has gone. Every time I've attempted something and missed it, I've made it and went above and beyond the next meet. So I missed 230 or 630 in a bench press. Remember back in the day, I went 622 and tried 635, missed 635. Next meet went 635, missed 650. Next meet went 650, missed 675. Next meet made 675, missed 700. So to me, there's always been a strong sequential order that if I at least attempt it, I'll make it my next time out. So I'm not worried about the 225 and then my next meet. Right.
So if you make the 225, you have the American world record, or
I'll have the American record. Yeah, I have the American record. Will put me top 5 or top 6 in the world all time.
Yeah,
which for being doing it as a master, I think like CT set that record when he was 33. So for me to do it in the open class, which means against everybody, and to do as a master is accomplishment for me. To be in the top 10 in a new sport, when everyone's like, oh, you're just a bencher, just stick with bench pressing. I'm like, all right, whatever. We'll see how that goes.
But how old are you now?
43.
Okay. And if you, let me rephrase that. When you break the strict girl American record, you think CT would be cool with it and congratulate you?
You know what? To be honest with you, I'll be 100% honest. I have no, ill will or animosity. There's been people, I don't want to say necessarily inside his camp or him himself. I just know this. I heard there's been rumblings that people don't want to see it happen. And I know from an official standpoint, I'm blocked from his social media page.
Really?
Yeah. And I've never had a conversation about it. I just remember going to tag him on some stuff, and I was like, okay, that's kind of odd.
Wow. Oh, wow. Because
and to be honest with you, I can only speak to what I know. I don't want to make speculations. Now, on IG, when someone else likes something or whatever, you can kind of see. I know that through people's stories, when people post something significant that they've done, and it pertains to strict curl, I've seen a lot of congratulatory praise and acknowledgments and, hey, keep going, keep strong. And I'm just gonna say from that camp, I've received nothing. And I've not been disrespectful. I can honestly say I've been respectful. It's like I can't react how someone's gonna feel, but I'm not gonna shy away from it. I'm not gonna ask permission to go for a record. I'll be polite. And even now, when we talk about it, I say I'm going for the American. I'm not disrespectful. I don't go out there in the public or social media and say I'm breaking so-and-so's record. I say I'm going for the American record. I try to be as polite and as tactful as I possibly can.
Of course. Well, that's what a person with character does. And it's kind of sad to hear that because CT Fletcher is a very, very lovable and household name. And hopefully it's just his camp and not him.
And that's the thing. I mean, the little bit
because you really don't know.
There was a post that I was gonna make, and I had some responses to that post that came from his, and I'll tell you what it is. There's some responses that came from his camp. And when I say his camp, it came directly from his IG. Now, I know this of other people. I can't say 100%. I don't know. My inclination in talking to other sources that he doesn't entirely run his own social media. So I can't either confirm nor deny. Right. And I can't really hold him accountable other than I can say the conversation that took place was between myself and his IG. Now, whether it was him running that IG, I don't know, because there was something about a misunderstanding, and basically there was a parody. It wasn't a parody. There was a video he did that said, if anybody, all these newcomers, if you want the Strict Curl record, you got to come through me. So I was like, fine, that's granted. I respect that. Mm-hmm. So I did a video where I did the same amount of reps, but he did it with 1 plate and I did it with 225 for 5, which was, the magic number. And so I think somebody or himself took offense saying, why would you compare yourself? He's older. And I'm like, hold on a second. Are we talking about the guy who talks more shit than anybody else on social media? It was kind of like, it was honest to God, bro. It was like Twilight Zone, like a couple, this is the same time frame that what the fuck is it? That rap villain and all that shit was going on. I was like, I don't know. The whole thing between Eminem and Machine Gun.
Oh, yeah, it was a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like, it was a little, so I was like, am I really getting, whatever for creating some hype and create something from the person who talks more shit to anybody, Mm-hmm. So I was like, so be it. I'll be humble. I'll retract. I won't post this. And then, it started to be like, why don't you post it? I guarantee people aren't going to see it as a tribute. They're going to see it as you talking shit or being offensive. I said, nowhere in this video was I offensive. I just said, you know what? I accept the challenge. I'm coming for this number. So, and it kept going back and forth. So at that time, I stopped texting and I called because I have his direct number. So I called, no answer. I was like, that's kind of odd. If you're sitting here going back and forth, and it wasn't heated, it was just going back and forth.
Right.
Why would you not take the phone call? And then, I can't name it, but I talked to another credible source that says, hey, you know what? That doesn't sound like the way he would have responded, how he would have handled it. And the fact that he didn't pick up the phone call means who was probably texting on that whole transaction probably wasn't him. It was probably someone close to him, was very concerned and didn't see it that way.
Okay.
So whatever the case may be, I don't want to say ties been severed. I would just say the communication has been open because I haven't had a chance to reach out to him, and I haven't seen him in a setting where it could have been talked about face to face. So moving forward, am I willing to like, do I want it to be squashed? Yeah, I want it to be squashed. Right. Do I want to see it mended moving forward? Yes. But as a competitor, I'm not going to back down and not acknowledge the record I'm going for.
Right, exactly. If all you said in the video was, I'm coming for your record, that's not offensive. Matter of fact, that should be a compliment. I mean, that record has been held.
And to be honest with you, and I know there's always two sides of the story. So as much as I can be honest and forth telling you about this, mm-hmm. I numerous times in that conversation said I was doing it to pay tribute or pay homage. That's what this whole parody was going to be. And I said, if you, the person himself, doesn't feel that way, then there's no need for me to post this because I don't need recognition or acceptance, or I don't need anything from anybody else other than the person that I was intended for. So if you're telling me you don't see it that way and you only see it as offensive, then I'm not going to post it. I don't need to hear from 20 or 30 or 50,000 fans or followers that they don't agree with what my intentions were. Because I'm telling you, man to man, these were my intentions. I understand you're 100% entitled to your opinion and your perception. But I'm telling you, if your perception is not that of what I intended it to be, I don't need to make the post. Right. And then it was just kind of left there. I never made the post. It was never publicly acknowledged. But since then, both camps have not talked.
That's kind of sad. I hope that it wasn't CT and it was just somebody from his camp. Because I really would like to believe that he's better than that, you know. But you know what, man? Like I said, just go out and break it and do it.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, who knows? It's just, all I can say is this: is that record's been so coveted, and with Larry Wheels and so many other people doing strict curl videos, and with me actually now, I can say as a competitor, someone who's, because now it's not here's the thing people know: one, I took a shot at 226 and I barely missed it, and two, I got a 209 on the books. So there's no mistaking that number, that I'm going for that number, and that's legit. It'd be one thing if I would have Kevin Washington, it just would have been on social media talking all this hype, but never compete. I've competed. Right. I've hit my mark. It's number 2 all time in the U.S. And make no mistake, everybody that understands that sport knows that's the number I'm coming for.
Yeah, of course. And like we said before, that's what makes you legit, and that's what makes you a champion in your field. And if that's the case, man, I know you're gonna break the record. And other than that, what else do you have on the radar? Anything? Is there another strict curl competition coming up soon?
Yeah, matter of fact, there's the Ronnie Coleman. You know, he's a bodybuilder, world famous, 8-time Mr. Olympia. He actually does a huge bodybuilding show that happens to have in conjunction with a huge powerlifting show that is headed by some people that are, you know, with the organization of the gym that I run. And it's been, you know, shaped that there's going to be a strict curl competition. So, you know, I wasn't really trying to announce it or make it a huge thing, but June 5th, I'll be back on the platform.
All right. Nice. Before we go, is there anything you want to promote? You have any products, businesses, anything like that you want to shout out?
I want to shout out, you know, Ghost Apparel. You got the logo behind me.
Okay.
Ghost Apparel, Icon Meals. My strength and conditioning coach, Kush, Fitness, helped me get Lean Mean Machine. You know, Big Tex, the home of where I trained. Alvanco putting out some great plates. Kabuki Strength got all the funky bars that I train with. Okay. And for the most part, I just try to be a man of the people. Try to do as much stuff with guys like yourself as I can.
I greatly appreciate it. What was it? It was Ghost Apparel. What was that second one? Because I'll make sure to put it in my comment section so people know what it is.
Ghost, Icon Meals.
Icon Meals. Okay. And I'll make sure to put those both in my comment section. So people know where to go and get it. And you run both of those or Ghost?
No, I'm an associate with both of those companies.
Okay, so I'll put it in the comment section and I'll make sure that it's there and people are able to just click and go check out what they got to offer. And listen, dude, I really appreciate it. And this is one of the better interviews I've had. I mean, this is great, and I really appreciate you doing this, man. And good luck to you. And I know you're gonna break the strict curl record, because if you're that close, it's just a matter of time.
Yeah.
That's really it. But dude, good luck to you. And I appreciate you coming on. And I'll definitely reach out to you again. And maybe when you break it, you can come back on and we'll talk about it.
Oh, I hope so. I mean, you know, I look forward to having that conversation after it's broken.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. We'll definitely see if we can hook that up. That'd be great, dude. And I really appreciate it, man.
And all right. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Have a good night, brother.
All right.